Sydney Metro. It's the biggest public transport project in Australia's history, with 46 stations spread out across 4 lines. The next stage of this massive project is finally nearing its completion, expected to open in just a few months. The Sydney Metro will be extended from Chatswood to Sydenham.
This metro is going to make trips from the northwest and the north of Sydney to the city and the south so much easier.
You have self-driving trains and they turn up quite quickly, high capacity, and they just keep coming. It's turn up and go.
It's an incredibly exciting time for Sydney. I reckon most Sydneysiders have no idea just how transformational this project is going to be.
In this video, I want to take a deep dive into what exactly is so special about the Sydney Metro project. We'll explore what makes it different to Sydney trains, all the time savings that commuters can expect, before taking a sneak peek at these stunning new stations. Because I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say that the Sydney Metro will change how Sydneysiders get around forever. Before I continue, massive shout out to my monthly Ko-fi supporters. Please do consider supporting me over on Ko-fi if you can. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already, and do be sure to check out the rest of my channel, your go-to YouTube destination for all things city planning, after the video. The Sydney Metro has seen itself incarnated in many forms over the past few decades. It was first proposed several times by the state Labor government while they were in power during the 2000s, but never really got anywhere. If you want to learn more about the history of the Sydney Metro, I'd recommend watching Zach's brilliant video over at City Connections. There's currently 3 different Sydney Metro projects under construction, all set to open at different times over the next decade. This video will be focusing on the line that's set to open within a month or so, from Chatswood to Sydenham. Now, the current Sydney Metro line, which runs from Tallawong to Chatswood, started construction in 2011 and opened in 2019. The metro starts at Tallawong, a frustratingly short 3 kilometres from the T1 at Schofields, before running on a viaduct to Rouse Hill, Kellyville, and Bella Vista. From there, it dives into an underground tunnel, heading to Norwest, Hills Showground, Castle Hill, Cherrybrook, and Epping, where it interchanges with the T9 Northern Line, allowing commuters to transfer towards Hornsby and Strathfield by heading up to the ground level platforms. From there, it utilises the Epping to Chatswood rail link, which originally opened in 2009 as a heavy rail line, but was converted into a metro for this project, going to Macquarie University, Macquarie Park, and North Ryde. Finally, it surfaces at an elevated station at Chatswood. Currently, Chatswood has one of Sydney's only cross-platform transfers, allowing commuters from the northwest to just cross their platform, easily getting to the city and vice versa. The Metro utilises Alstom Metropolis electric multiple units, which are single-decker driverless trains. Indeed, the Sydney Metro is Australia's first ever fully driverless passenger railway, which I reckon is pretty impressive. They come in 6-car sets with open gangways. That means there's no doors between carriages like on our trains, and with longitudinal seating. With 26 currently in service, an additional 19 are set to enter service when the line is extended to Sydenham. 45 trains in total. Now you can bet that Alstom were really busy while they were building these 45 trains. The thing is, it's hard for companies like theirs to keep up, especially in today's economy. You need all the help you can get, especially if you're a small business. That's where Mint Consulting come in, the sponsor of today's video. Mint Consulting are a Sydney-based team that want you to be equipped with tools and solutions to effectively manage your business. They can help simplify your systems, manage your projects better, manage your team better, automate many of your business processes, and more. If you've ever used Salesforce, Monday.com, or any of the other big name tools, you know the challenges of maintaining them. Lucky for you, Mint Consulting can help you out, with experts in over a dozen different CRM, marketing automation, inventory management, and work management tools. If you're a small business owner who's watching, then you're in luck. The first 10 signups who use the code Building Beautifully will get a free consultation systems health check with Mint. Visit the link in the description to find out more. So I have no doubt that many of you are wondering, what on earth is the difference between the Sydney Metro and Sydney trains? What makes the Sydney Metro better? Firstly, Sydney Trains is not driverless, whereas Sydney Metro is. By removing the human element, you increase the reliability of the Metro. The Sydney Metro operates every 4 minutes during the peak in both directions, and every 10 minutes off-peak at all stations. Sydney Trains is a bit harder to quantify given it's a far larger network, but frequencies of every 4 minutes are usually only matched at major stations. At a minor station, say Denniston, it's every 15 minutes, both on and off peak, with other stations going as low as every 30 minutes off peak. All Sydney Metro stations have platform screen doors, something no Sydney train stations have. That practically eliminates the risk of rail incursions, and also allows metros to accelerate much faster into stations, again improving travel times. Accessibility is also far better on the Sydney Metro, with every single station having level access into the carriages. Unlike Sydney trains where a member of staff is generally required to allow those with mobility needs onto the train. Sydney train lines often have complex operations with freight, express trains, all-stops trains, intercity trains, interstate trains, and more, all running in the same corridor. If one slip-up happens, the entire Sydney Trains network gets messed up, something every Sydneysider is acutely familiar with. But since Sydney Metro is driverless, running in its own standalone corridor not linked to the trains, and with almost no potential for corridor incursions, the Metro is basically never delayed. Amazing! The entire Sydney Trains network utilises a double-decker rolling stock with mostly transverse seating, whereas Sydney Metro utilises single-decker rolling stock with the longitudinal seating. This may not sound like an advantage, but our trains actually take longer to unload because they can only have 2 doors per car. The Metro actually has 3 doors per car, allowing for faster unloading and shorter dwell times at stations as a result, leading to faster journeys. Sydney Trains has complex stopping patterns, often skipping stations due to express services. Sydney Metro always stops at every single station no matter what. That might sound bad, but I did the math on the conversion of the Bankstown line, and the All Stops Metro ends up being faster than the express train. You end up essentially giving expresses to every station. The best of both worlds. The Sydney Metro is faster, accelerating at 1.2 meters per second squared, 50% faster than the Waratahs, which accelerate at 0.8 meters per second squared. The Sydney Metro has a maximum capacity of 1,100, while the Waratahs on Sydney trains have a maximum capacity of 2,150. Okay, fine, this point goes to Sydney trains. But the differences can still be confusing. Unlike other global suburban rail systems, Sydney Trains actually has fairly high frequencies and serves high-density suburbs, which makes it a bit more like a metro. And unlike other rapid transit systems, Sydney Metro goes over long distances, with large spaces of up to 2 kilometers between stations, which makes it more like suburban rail. There's a lot of overlap here, which makes the differences confusing and is to an extent an indictment of the Sydney Metro, but we'll get into that another time. Even though it's not perfect, most agree that the Sydney Metro is a superior system to Sydney Trains. Let's go over the new route of the Sydney Metro City. From Chatswood, the Metro will have a station at Crow's Nest, just east of St Leonard's, and Victoria Cross, just north of North Sydney. It will then pass underneath Sydney Harbour in only the second ever railway crossing of our harbour. Next we arrive in Sydney CBD, with the following rail stations being the first to have been built in the CBD since 1979. First, there's a station at Barangaroo, then an interchange with the T4 at Martin Place, allowing transfers towards suburbs like Bondi Junction, Walleye Creek and Hurstville. Then there's Gadigal, just east of Town Hall. Next is Central, allowing transfers to basically every train line in Sydney, as well as intercity and even interstate services. Next, the line will go to Waterloo, just east of Redfern and west of Green Square. Finally, it will arrive at Sydenham, where it will interchange with the T8, allowing transfers towards Revesby and the T4 again. It will end here, but not forever, set to be extended to Bankstown along the Bankstown line in 2025. Now, one of the most impressive feats of the Metro is just how much time it will save commuters. The Metro bypasses the huge S-bend that the railway makes to service Wollstonecraft. Also, trains can generally only go at a measly 40 km an hour on the city circle, and at roughly 70 km an hour or slower between Central and Sydenham, while the Metro will be able to go at its maximum operating speed of 100 km an hour for this entire length. So let's dive into some of those time savings, shall we? The current 23-minute journey from Chatswood to Town Hall will drop to just 13 minutes from Chatswood to Gadigal, a full 10-minute time saving. A journey from Chatswood to Sydenham will go from an average of 40 minutes to just 22 minutes. The current 13 minutes you'd spend getting from Central to North Sydney will drop to just 9 minutes from Central to Victoria Cross. A journey from Central to Macquarie University, which currently takes about 40 minutes, will drop to just 26 minutes. All the transfers that the Sydney Metro allows for will really open up many possibilities. For example, a journey from Chatswood to Bondi Junction currently takes about 40 minutes. On the Metro, that will be just 22 minutes. If you're at Epping, should you continue taking the T9 to the city, or should you start taking the Metro instead? Now yes, the Metro will take 30 minutes to Central, faster than the current 36 minutes. But that's on an all-stops T9 service. The Express service takes 30 minutes, which is the same as the Metro. And on top of that, the CCN from the Central Coast to Newcastle only takes 25 minutes. However, the Express T9 and CCN don't go through the city circle for whatever reason, so if you're headed to, say, Gadigal, the Metro would be your best bet, taking 28 minutes, compared with 39 minutes on the T9 all stops to Town Hall. Before the Sydney Metro opened, residents of Bella Vista only had the option of taking the 607X to Town Hall. This is currently scheduled to take a full 60 minutes during peak hour due to road traffic, although drops to about 45 minutes off-peak. With the current route of the Sydney Metro, the journey takes between 50 and 60 minutes. When the Metro opens, it will only take 43 minutes to get from Bella Vista to Gadigal. That's 17 minutes faster than during the peak, and while it's only 2 minutes faster than the off-peak bus, as someone who uses the Hills buses regularly, I think the 607X users will be happy enough if the Metro just shows up. God knows the 607X doesn't. What amazes me the most about the Metro is the fact that, for almost all scenarios, it's faster than driving. Want to drive from Castle Hill to Barangaroo? That journey will take you anywhere between 28 and 40 minutes. It can go as high as 50 minutes due to traffic. By the Metro, it will only take 33 minutes. Always, no matter what time. Finally, the Sydney Metro will benefit stations that aren't even on the Sydney Metro. Phew, that was a lot. The new Sydney Rail Map came out a few weeks ago and includes important changes such as the Metro extension, the Bankstown shuttle service, and the South West Bus Link. People weren't huge fans of it for various reasons, so I asked the Building Beautifully Discord server to redesign the map and then vote for the best one. And here it is, designed by Crossing Lights. What a superb map. Transport for New South Wales, if you're watching, seriously consider hiring Crossing Lights. Finally, we're now going to explore each station that is about to open on the Sydney Metro network in depth, which will include footage of Sydney Metro open days that I attended over the past few months, where the public went into the stations and saw what they look like.
Congratulations to the New South Wales government on getting its massive project done.
Having a great metro connection that runs frequently just makes things so much easier.
My explorations will be detailed but relatively brief. For those who want truly in-depth explorations of each station, I strongly recommend watching Paul's channel, Transport Vlog. He goes into unparalleled levels of depth. He's even generously lent me some footage for this video. Let's quickly look at Chatswood. It's an existing station on the Metro network, so there's nothing much new to report here. Probably the only pertinent thing is that when the Metro opens, those on the train indeed now have the option to cross onto a Metro to get to the city, and vice versa. First stop, Crow's Nest, almost 4 kilometers south of Chatswood. Crow's Nest is a suburb on the lower North Shore with a modest population of 4,974. It's only about 500 metres from the existing St Leonard's train station. Royal North Shore Hospital, one of Sydney's largest hospitals, is also nearby. With St Leonard's having seen a substantial amount of residential development over the past decade, the passenger catchment for Crow's Nest is quite large, and there's only more to come. There'll be a large entrance to the station on the Pacific Highway, as well as a smaller entrance on Clark Street. The station is certainly smaller than the others, as you'll soon see, but should still be more than adequate for commuters.
There's going to be like more frequency into the city. People in Tallawong can actually get to the city without changing trains, which is also nice. I really like the accessibility of the station. The lights aren't so fluorescent that it's blinding, because I know a lot of neurodivergent folk and those with disabilities don't like blinding lights, so it feels nice and calm.
Compared to like Macquarie Park or like Epping, those stations really have that raw feeling because you can really see onto the track and there's not too much separation between where you are and where the track is. So I feel like this metro like station, it just really has that more finished look, I would say.
Development at Crow's Nest has been embroiled in controversy ever since the station's conception, but things are moving in the right direction now, with the precinct identified for priority mass upzoning by the Minns government. Currently, there's a 17-storey residential building planned next to the station, as well as one 21-storey and one 9-storey office tower on top of the station. Watch this space, there's definitely more to come.
The best thing about Crow's Nest is the fact that it exists and that there isn't a massive gap between Chatswood and Victoria Cross. That's the only good thing about it.
That's what you're gonna say. You know, maybe I'll include.
Our next stop is Victoria Cross, located about 1.5 kilometers southeast of Crow's Nest, in the suburb of North Sydney. Apparently Victoria Cross refers to the intersection around the Pacific Highway and Miller Street. It's not the most specific name, but they couldn't exactly have called it North Sydney, so I think Victoria Cross works. As I alluded to earlier, North Sydney is an important business centre, with many companies basing themselves here. North Sydney also has an insane number of schools, including the top school in New South Wales. North Sydney Station, which is on the T1 and T9, is about 500 metres south of Victoria Cross, and it's a fairly constrained station, being the 8th busiest station in all of Sydney. Consequently, it's no wonder that Victoria Cross is being built so close to North Sydney. There will be 3 entrances into Victoria Cross: Miller Street South, Denison Street, and Miller Street North. The Miller Street South and Denison Street entrance is pretty much just one entrance with both escalators and lifts. And I'd imagine this entrance will be most useful for those who currently use North Sydney Station. The Miller Street North entrance, on the other hand, will probably not be used as much because it's further away from the business centre and because it's a lift-only entrance. Indeed, the first ever lift-only entrance to a train station in all of Australia. The reason for this is purely the depth, with the station almost 13 stories below at this point, way too deep for escalators. There are 4 lifts, each capable of carrying 27 people, with a prediction that commuters will only ever wait a maximum of 21 seconds, assuming all the lifts are working. Alright, it's time to head on underground and explore Victoria Cross.
My favorite station is Victoria Cross because it's like big and it's one of the only stations that has like you'll only need an elevator to go in.
My favorite thing about the Sydney Metro has to be the comfortability and the convenience of it. You can pretty much just turn up to the station and there'll be a train within a few minutes.
I mean, it gives you a lot of vibes from Macquarie Park or Epping or like pretty much, while also keeping the feel of stations like Castle Hill and Waterloo. It's amazing.
Above this southern entrance will be a 40-storey office tower, which will include retail space and a restaurant precinct. And on that note, I really hope that Victoria Cross manages to reinvigorate North Sydney. It's currently renowned for being a bit of a ghost town on weekends. Look at Barangaroo, a successful office precinct that's still quite busy even on the weekends. I'm hoping that Victoria Cross Metro offers North Sydney a chance to liven up, turning it from a dull office centre into a leisure destination. And well, speak of the devil, our next stop is Barangaroo, located about 2.5 kilometres south of Victoria Cross. Barangaroo is one of my favourite parts of Sydney CBD, transformed from a forgotten seaport to a thriving office and leisure district. However, one of the more unfortunate things about Barangaroo Metro Station is that it's actually located a good 10-minute walk from Barangaroo South, currently the main and busiest part of the Barangaroo precinct. The station itself is currently located in the barren central Barangaroo precinct, meaning Barangaroo Station is going to open in an empty part of the CBD, which is a bit of a waste. On the bright side, the station is also close to Barangaroo Reserve, which offers one of the best views of Sydney Harbour from the CBD, as well as the residential harbour suburb of Millers Point. I don't expect either of these to be huge commuter draws, but they're there. The entrance to Barangaroo is definitely one of the more low-key of the metro stations. There's this lift entrance and then this small shell structure, which takes you to the escalators that head all the way down to the concourse. Alright, let's explore Barangaroo Station.
Once you get down to that concourse, you've got this huge ceiling above you, you've got the beautiful sandstone, and of course, you're right by the water.
Indeed, Barangaroo is adorned by 7,286 sandstone panels, paying homage to the natural sandstone that Sydney Harbour sits on.
My favourite station on the new Sydney Metro is probably Barangaroo because I visited there recently. It's a very nice station. It has a lot of lovely artwork sets inside it, and it's going to be serving the Barangaroo precinct, which I think is great.
You might be confused as to why Barangaroo only has one entrance. That's because this wall will soon be a new exit up to street level. It was originally planned to go into a larger underground retail space, but that's sadly not happening anymore. The current plans for central Barangaroo are primarily based around residential land use, with modest 7 to 10 story apartments set to be built, along with some retail. I expect this to be a modest walkable mid-rise development, but I feel that it's not properly capitalising on a prime CBD location for the sake of a powerful few who don't want views of the harbour blocked. At any rate, construction on this residential development is set to begin this year and be completed in 2029, which will finally give Barangaroo Station the commuter catchment that will justify its construction. Let's get back on the metro and head to our next station, Martin Place. Martin Place is located about 1.5 kilometres southeast of Barangaroo, being an existing station on the T4 Eastern Suburbs and Illawarra line. I expect that the new metro station will complement the nearby Wynyard station, servicing the many offices and retail space located around the Wynyard and Martin Place area, as well as important nearby landmarks such as New South Wales Parliament, the State Library and the Domain. The new Martin Place metro station will have 2 entrances. The southern entrance will provide access to Castlereagh and Elizabeth Streets, and the northern entrance to Hunter Street.
My favourite new metro station is probably Martin Place, how it's like a major intersection with Hunter Street and like all the major things like around the CBD.
My favourite thing about the new Martin Place Metro is just how well it's made. They were talking about how the natural light can be seen from 40 metres below, which I think is really interesting, and it's just like an architectural marvel.
And here we finally are at the underground platforms. They're spaced pretty far apart here. For example, I'm standing on platform 3 here, and platform 4 is all the way over there, which is because the tunnels run parallel to Elizabeth and Castlereagh streets here, in order to best avoid complex underground foundations of buildings in Sydney CBD.
There's an interchange station here. If I was heading to Bondi Junction from Sydenham, I can just take the metro here. Just turn up and go. You don't have to check trip view.
To help commuters, the ceiling is teal if you're heading towards the metro and orange towards the trains. I hope you like this shot. I literally had to bend over backwards to film it. To get to the trains, follow this passageway, head up this escalator, and voila, you're right here on the old T4 Martin Place platforms, which can take you south towards Hurstville or east towards Bondi Junction. An effortless transfer that will strengthen connections between north and south. Of course, there's also the overstation development here. 39 stories in the north and 28 stories in the south, both of which will have retail and office space. I feel this will really help to inject life into the Martin Place metro station. Quite importantly, Martin Place is actually planned to have a connection to the future Hunter Street metro station, as part of the Sydney Metro West project to Parramatta, set to open in 2032. Truly, this will be a very impressive integrated interchange. Next stop, Gadigal, which will be just under a kilometre south of Martin Place. The station was formerly named Pitt Street, but was renamed in honour of the Gadigal people, the traditional owners of the land that Sydney CBD sits upon. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. People have complained about the new name, claiming it isn't geographically descriptive enough, but Victoria Cross is arguably just as ambiguous as Gadigal, and no one really complains about that name. Gadigal will primarily act to take pressure off Town Hall Station, which is located only a short 2-minute walk away. Town Hall is the busiest station in all of Sydney, yet the station is woefully small, cramped, and just terribly designed. One might question why Town Hall and Gadigal aren't linked, but please, given how long I took to escape last time, I don't need yet another exit from that godforsaken hellhole. The real reason is apparently because if there's an emergency at one, they'd rather that the other be able to continue operations, giving much needed redundancy to our rail network. Gadigal will also be your best bet if you want to get to World Square, Darling Harbour, Hyde Park, Town Hall, QVB and the many offices in the area. There'll be two entrances to Gadigal, one on Park Street and one on Bathurst Street. The Park Street exit should allow quick transfers to Town Hall train station, although I would not recommend transferring here, but rather doing so at Martin Place or Central. However, if you want to get to the light rail to head to areas like Chinatown, this is probably your best bet. Gadigal looks really impressive and quite reminiscent of Martin Place. The Park Street station development will sound familiar, a 39-storey mixed-use office and retail tower. However, the Bathurst Street station development is something new, a build-to-rent tower which interestingly is also 39 stories. This will be a tower with 234 apartments that can only be rented, not bought, with the landlord being a company, not a single investor. It's an interesting concept that's gaining traction around Australia and may indeed play a role in solving the housing crisis. Next stop, Central, about 1 kilometre south of Gadigal. Central Station is the biggest station in Sydney and the second busiest. The station services every type of rail service in New South Wales, from suburban trains to intercity trains to regional and interstate trains to light rail. And now one more type will be added to that list. The Metro. Obviously, the central metro platforms will primarily act to allow commuters to transfer to these other services. However, Central has a few important nearby landmarks of its own, such as UTS, Broadway, Capitol Theatre and Chinatown. Users of Central will no doubt have noticed Central Walk, which opened in November 2022. This was a massive underground expansion of Central, which involved adding escalators to every platform and a link to the Central Chalmers Street light rail.
Central Walk is really like a very beautiful concourse. It's a great addition to the actual Central Station.
However, the main purpose of it was to allow a connection from all the platforms to the metro. The underground metro platforms are here, on the western end of Central Walk, numbered platforms 26 and 27. Indeed, these 45-metre long escalators down to the metro platforms are the longest in the southern hemisphere. I think there's something truly special about the fact that they managed to build 2 new underground platforms at Central, one of the oldest, largest and most complex stations in Australia. It's truly admirable. Waterloo is the next metro station, almost 2 kilometres south of Central. An interesting fact about Waterloo is that USyd was an alternate location that was seriously considered by the government before they settled on Waterloo. I think that's a real shame, even though I'm a UNSW student. Although Waterloo was chosen as it will offer more potential for residential uplift, students still need a way to get to uni too. Waterloo is a primarily residential suburb of 16,000 residents, most notably with a sizable public housing estate of 4,000 tenants. Also, Waterloo is just a 10-minute walk from Redfern and a 15-minute walk from Green Square, so should help to alleviate the pressure on these 2 very busy stations. The station will also provide easy access to the South Everleigh Technology Park. And how could we forget the Australian Railway Historical Society's store? Waterloo has just one station building, but it's a very impressive building, with large open entrances from Raglan Street and Cope Street. Interestingly, the station will also have a large level dedicated to bike parking. Brilliant to see Sydney Metro encouraging active transport. Okay, stop! If I play Waterloo 1 second longer, Apple will copyright strike me and take all my money. Guess it really is a rich man's world.
My favorite thing about Sydney Metro is the grand and magnificent design of the station from Station Waterloo. So the design was grand and beautiful for me. It's really touching.
building a whole mini town of sorts, like retail and residential around the stations themselves. I think it's actually a really good way of developing public infrastructure.
Waterloo was chosen over USyd due to the potential for substantial residential uplift, so you better believe that's what's happening. Waterloo Quarter is currently under construction by Mirvac and will include a 17-storey office building, 24-storey apartment building, and a 25-storey student accommodation building. It will be a walkable community with laneways, restaurants, retail, and a large central plaza. Brilliant. There's also plans to rejuvenate the area to the north and south of the station, including plans to demolish public housing in the area in order to build more apartments. Waterloo South will allow for 3,000 more homes, a massive win for boosting housing supply in Sydney, but a loss for those already living in public housing in the area that will now need to temporarily relocate. Finally, we arrive at the final stop on the new metro, Sydenham. Sydenham is an existing train station on the T3, T4 and T8 during peak hour, most importantly located just north of where the Bankstown line branches off from the Illawarra line. It's the 36th busiest station in Sydney. There's not too much going on in Sydenham. With a small population of 1,100, it's a primarily industrial suburb. Given its location directly under loud flight paths into Sydney Airport, we're not likely to see huge amounts of development here. Hence, the station is more likely to function primarily as an interchange station for those going between the north and northwest, southwest and south. By facilitating transfers before getting to the city, it should help speed up journeys. Sydenham will only be the terminus of the metro for a year, while the metro is extended to Bankstown. For that 1 year, commuters of the T3 will be dropped off at Sydenham to head into the city. In lieu of its purpose as an interchange station, a new concourse on the north has been constructed. This will allow for a new entrance on Burrows Avenue and Railway Parade. On Railway Parade, there will now be space for buses to drop passengers, a new plaza, and a new entrance, so that commuters don't need to go all the way up to the southern concourse. This new entrance will take passengers straight to Platform 1, heading northbound back to the city. You'll be able to take the new concourse to Platform 2, which will for now be where services from the city terminate, but soon enough will allow commuters to head towards Bankstown.
I really like the footbridge at Sydenham Station that adds a whole new entrance to the other side of the platforms.
Once again, there'll be large bike parking sheds at Sydenham. Brilliant. Well, I feel like I've been talking about the Sydney Metro for 100 years, but we still haven't asked the golden question. When the hell will it open? Look, as of recording this video, no one has any idea when it will open, but it's looking highly likely that it will open sometime in July, and it will definitely open on a Sunday, the quietest day of the week. That's as narrow a window as I can give you. Trust me, the minute I know when it's opening, I'll be telling you right away.
The Sydney Metro really will change how Sydneysiders get around forever. It's going to make getting from one side of the harbour to the other faster and easier than ever before. It's going to introduce an entire city to the concept of turn up and go services.
I think my favourite thing about Sydney Metro is the reliability. I think it's not really about the speed, it's how reliable you can get it.
It's just how expansive it is. It really connects all the communities who haven't been connected.
It refuses to see stations as merely stations, but rather as destinations in their own right. Places that people want to be. It will be transformational, and God knows, I hope that it influences future rail projects in Sydney for decades to come. Our great city deserves a fully automated, frequent, reliable, and simply world-class metro system. And believe me, I'm so excited to see its next stage finally open. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.